Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me today. Thanks to Riz and Michelle for hosting this event and inviting me along as well. So my name's Robbie Rice, and as Ruben said, I'm a general manager of Fresh Consulting UK. We are a creative and user experience design agency. In the UK right now, we're kind of a startup as well because we just came over here about 9 months ago, and we've been getting things going and building our business up and our practice and so on. So I'll tell you a little bit about Fresh Consulting. We are headquartered in Seattle, and we now have offices here in London and Bangkok. We founded in 2007. We have about nearly 60 staff now. We're growing very quickly. We've been one of the fastest growing companies in Washington State for about 3 years. And again, we have 3 offices. We're also a multi-award winning creative agency. We tend to pick up awards pretty much every year in application design and website design. Okay, what we do, we have comprehensive services around digital creative things, basically. We start on this side of things. We do a lot of consulting. The consulting in Fresh Consulting is very important to us. We work with large companies like Microsoft or T-Mobile, and we offer design thinking and innovation consulting to help them improve their businesses. We also do a lot of design. Our company is based around user experience design and everything around that. We build websites, we build applications, we build mobile apps, we build systems. We also do a lot of consulting around marketing as well. Our philosophy has been very, very important to us because I'd say that a lot of similar companies are very strong up here in the design area, so they're designing things. They might be pretty strong in the business side, so they might approach marketing, design and marketing together, or they might be pretty strong in technology and design, and they might build things, for example. We have equal focus on all 3 areas. We have people with very deep experiences in technology. We have people that are very, very experienced, very educated in design, and then again in business as well. And what we found is that by overlapping those 3, when we ever approach a project, we get really, really good results. And that has really helped us to grow over the last 9 years. And so this is some of our clients now. T-Mobile, CBRE, Microsoft, Cisco, Deloitte, and so on. We tend to pick up clients, and then they tend to stick with us because they really like our approach, and we deliver value time and time again. A little bit about me. As Ruben said, I actually did 2 degrees here. I graduated first time in 2003, and then I left the UK and went to live in Japan. And so this is kind of my personal life as we went along, my timeline here. But while in Japan, I worked as a teacher, I worked as a carpenter, and then eventually I worked in the automotive industry where I worked in IT. And I worked as a project manager there. I was there for about 7 years, and I moved to America where I got my MBA and started working in strategy consulting and then eventually product management in a SaaS environment. So I was a product manager for a software as a service company. And eventually from there, I joined Fresh Consulting and then came back full circle to Southampton, of all places, to set up Fresh Consulting UK. So I want to start off with a question. So we're going to talk about what is user experience design to begin with. So in my experience, user experience design is often misunderstood. And it's got to the point where people are applying it to so many different fields or misapplying it to different fields as well. But it comes down to something very, very simple, but I want to do a quick quiz of the audience. Could you raise your hand if you've ever built an application or a website or been involved with something like that? Okay, great. Keep your hands up, sorry. Now lower your hands if user experience design was a part of that conversation. Okay, so not as many. And then again, so how many have we still got to keep your hands up all the time? That's it. So, and of those people, who still feels confident, keep your hand up if you feel confident and you could relate to somebody what user experience design actually is. Okay, great. So you have one or 2 people in the entire room. And I think that's typically the thing. So there's a lot of people out there building things. There's a lot of groups and teams and companies that bring user experience design into the conversation, but when you get down to it, people aren't really very confident about what it means and why it's important. And when I came to the UK, I wanted to understand what what the pulse of the market was. And I went out and I talked to potential clients. I said, what do you understand by user experience design? And the typical answer I got was, it's the kind of fluffy feeling you get when you go on a landing page. When you click onto a web page and you get that feeling, that's user experience design. And really, it couldn't be further from the truth, to be honest. So here's a quote that I pulled off the internet very quickly. It seemed to hit the nail on the head, really. So the goal of user experience design in industry is to improve customer satisfaction and loyalty through utility, ease of use, and pleasure provided in interaction with a product. And I think that's pretty good. I think ultimately, the way I see it is that if you're interacting with a product or a website or any kind of service or any kind of business, you're going to have some kind of experience. And if you don't think about that experience at all, then you're effectively leaving that experience up to chance. So all user experience design is doing is taking the chance out of that customer experience, that user experience, and crafting something that will lead to a happy experience, that will bring them back to your business, to your application, to your website, whatever it is, and hopefully they'll become a loyal customer over time. And the three components to that is, as it says here, value, which is utility, so you build value into your business or your application, usability, and a really nice, enjoyable experience, basically. So what does user experience design look like? There's this other perception I've encountered that it's kind of like an epiphany. So people say, well, we need a user experience design, and people go, okay, I got it. And they'll create something. And it really, that again, couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually a lot of effort. It's basically a process, and this is our process. You can't see it so much here, it's a bit blurry. But essentially what we do is, at the very beginning, we're just listening. We're listening, we're doing user research, we're going out interviewing people. In some projects that I've done, I've had to travel internationally. I was in Jamaica last year talking to Jamaicans about banking applications, for example. We do ethnographic research. From there, we start building this picture up. We're building a picture of who are these users, what do they need in their lives, how do we craft a great experience for them, and then we start building something. Now what we start building is, at the first point, is just a hypothesis. We're putting it in there into wireframes, and then we're testing it, because what we know is that we're probably going to be wrong, but through an iterative process, we're going to get more and more right towards the end. And finally, at the end, you're getting mock-ups, prototypes, and then finally your end product. It's effectively a big pyramid tilted on its side there. It's not an epiphany. It's a lot of hard work. But it's actually very enjoyable, and you get a lot of interesting work out of it. Now, what I want to talk about today is something that I've started calling contributive UX. That's contributive user experience. And the way I define that is basically where your strategy or your business strategy overlaps with a really, really good user experience. And what I mean by that with your strategy is, well, what is it that your business or your application or your website really has to focus on in order to grow? If you have a strategy, you know exactly what to do and exactly what not to chase. That's a great strategy. Now, if you have great UX, then you have something that your users will enjoy coming into, and they'll come into it time and time again. They might start using it very quickly. They might master using it very quickly. If you can overlap those two areas and align those two things, you're going to experience really, really rapid and stable growth with your business. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to talk to you about it with two well-known businesses that I'm pretty sure everyone knows here. There's Airbnb, I'm sure everyone knows that. Does everyone know Slack? No? Okay, I'll talk to you about Slack in a bit. Slack's a newer one, as you can see. It's only 3 years old at this point in time, but it's just seen explosive growth. Is anyone here a developer or a software engineer at all? Anyone? Okay, do you use Slack? Yeah, there you go. Everyone, it's really, really popular with developers at the moment. We'll go into it in a bit. Not much to look at. People get excited about it. It's kind of a contradiction. But we'll see in a bit. We'll talk about Airbnb first. Anyone used Airbnb? Hands up. Yeah? Yes? Okay, yeah. Everyone knows what it is, though? All right, brilliant. So this is what it looked like in 2008. I think everyone knows the story, but I'll recap it here anyway. The founder had an experience where I can't remember precisely, maybe he couldn't get a hotel or something. He ended up sleeping on an inflatable mattress around his friend's house, and he thought, what a brilliant idea. I can get people to rent out their spare room in their houses, and people can stay places much, much cheaper than staying in a hotel. And the business model looks a bit like this. You have a homeowner who has free space in a house, and you have a renter, like someone who's going to stay in a hotel. So what the idea is here is that you have two value propositions. This Airbnb is what we call a multi-sided platform. So you have two value propositions. To the homeowner, it says, well, you have this wasted space that you're not doing anything with. Why don't you make some money from that? And to the renter, originally, it's changed a little bit since, but originally they said, okay, rather than paying a lot of money for a hotel, why don't you pay a lot less and stay in someone's house? And so they set up this platform, and it worked like this. Okay, so the homeowner sends a signal to Airbnb, I have space. Airbnb then amplifies that signal to the renter and reaches an enormous market of renters and say, hey, there's space available here. If you want to stay in a hotel, instead of staying in a hotel, you can stay in this house cheaply. One renter says, okay, great, pays Airbnb money, then Airbnb sends off to a little bit of that money or most of that money to the homeowner, and everybody's happy. So this is a business model here. Now, if we go to their story, it kind of looked like this. This is where their growth. They started off in 2008, and this represents bookings. Right, so they go from 2008, 2009, 2010, and nothing's really happening. They're growing the number of people registering on both sides of that business model, but nothing's really happening. And what they did to solve this is that they started looking at that renter. So, okay, what is it that renter's looking for? We have loads of accommodations, but they're not booking. There's nobody booking here. And really what it came down to was this. You go onto Airbnb, and instead of seeing a really nice hotel with plush, 16 pillows and a gorgeous view and everything, you see this kind of like grungy bedroom. And you think, wow, that looks really lived in, and I'm going to go and stay in that. It's going to be someone's house, and I'm going to be underneath their feet. And instead of saying, their value proposition was supposed to be, you can save money and stay in a house. But what they did was they created a secondary question inside the renter, which was, what can I put up with to save money? And so they created this conflict of, well, I want to save money, but what can I really put up with when I book through Airbnb? And so they weren't really getting many bookings, because what it was is that they had a lot of apartments and a lot of houses and places to rent, but they didn't really have a lot of attractive places to rent from the perception of the renter, at the very least. And they solved it very, very easily. And they did this. They basically employed professional photographers. That's all they did. So in the beginning, they had these people took their own photos and they uploaded it. And it just looked horrible. You kind of... I remember when I was looking for a house, when I first moved back to the UK, and I was looking for a house, and there was just some appalling photography because people were doing it themselves, and it just made houses look much worse than they actually were. And it's the same thing. If you're not a professional photographer, you don't really know how to capture the light and how to capture the angle. So you tend to get dark, dingy, small-looking places. You get a professional photographer in there, they're going to direct you. They're going to say, okay, let's place the furniture just so. You need to change that. You need to get something in here. Let's put something up on this wall. Let's take the picture from this angle. Let's get the natural light in. Let's get some beautiful lighting in this corner. And then suddenly, you have an experience that you actually want to be involved with. You don't think, oh, okay, it's cheap, but do I really want to put up with that? You go, oh my God, it's cheap and it looks amazing. I want to go with it. And so what happened was they found out that by using a professional photographer, and they only have to do this once per property, they found that they got 2.5 times the number of bookings from the apartments with professional photography than those without it. And of course, what happened was, after 2011, you start getting this, what they call a hockey stick, the hockey stick of growth, where it just ramps up because that multiplier is just accumulating over time. It's just powering that through. And that's what you really want to get with by understanding your user, is understanding exactly what's going to make them click, or understanding exactly what is valuable to them and understanding exactly what questions are going through their mind when they make that kind of decision. Okay, so next, very quickly, I want to go on to Slack. So I said Slack was started in 2013. Does anyone use things like Yammer or, I don't know, Messenger, Google Hangouts, that kind of thing? Nobody? Skype? Okay, yeah, everybody. Slack is basically that, but it's just much, much better. It has, you can seamlessly take care of teams, of different conversations. You can split things up. You can search your hard drive, your cloud space. You can integrate with different platforms like GitHub, for example, which is why it's really, really popular with developers. And it looks like this. Sorry about the low definition here. It looks like this. It's completely unexciting. It's not like this revolutionary application. It's just a messaging app. And yet they've seen this explosive growth. They're one of the darlings of San Francisco right now. And the reason why they're so exciting to investors and to the general tech public is just that they got so many things right. That's all they did. So they're a SaaS business. They're a software as a service business. They have a freemium model, which means that you can start using it for free. But essentially, their business is to sell to enterprise businesses and get paid subscriptions so that their teams, their development teams or their marketing teams or whatever it is, are paying per user per month. And a software as a service business has a number of typical characteristics. They're not always precisely the same, but generally they typically have monthly subscriptions, they have per user pricing or something similar, they're cloud-based, and they typically have upgrades available that you can just keep purchasing into their system and growing their revenue. And that's why, to be honest, that's why SaaS has become a very, very popular model in software. Now, if you look at the way SaaS works, this is what happens. So in a given month, you might get, say, 100 people sign up to your software as a service. And then what happens is that people drop out. People go, oh, it's not really working for me, or oh, this one's better. And over time, your cohort tends to get smaller and smaller and smaller until it goes to zero. But the reason why this is so attractive is because the value of one customer is basically 100% times that monthly subscription plus 95% times this monthly subscription fee times 90% times this one, and so on, all the way down to the end. So every time you sign up a customer, you basically get, if it's a 5% churn or a 95% retention per month, you're going to get 20 months of subscription fees on average from that one cohort. So that's amazingly attractive to businesses, to startups, to investors. It's like, wow, you get one person in paying you £10 a month, that's worth £200 every time you sign someone up. If you can sign someone up for £1, this is a really, really good business. And people focus on this number, that 5%, the 5% there, the 5% there, the 5% there, and so on, because, I skipped a bit, sorry. I'll get to that in a second. But okay, so basically there's this really, really basic SaaS adoption process where people think of it like this on a really, really basic level. They think, well, people hear about my product and they go to my website or they speak to my sales rep and they validate that, yes, this is possibly the right solution for me. And they get into a trial and they test it out for a month and they say, okay, I'm using it. Okay, this is great. I'm going to convert to a paid subscription. They they adopt it, they start paying the subscription, and then the company retains them for as long as possible. And the companies really just focus on that retention because it just makes so much sense on an immediate level. If you look at what retention does, going from 90% retention to 95% retention, you're going to double that customer lifetime value. And so there's this massive focus on let's retain customers. Let's get 95% plus retention on a month-to-month basis because we can make so much more money. And so what happens is that this strategy of focusing on retention forces the development and the design team to focus on what we call in our industry populated states. So you have an application, it already has data in there. Let's make that application great with handling data. And all the investments in making this product better goes there. Now, the thing is that is actually logical, but it doesn't really lead to that hockey stick. This hockey stick is not driven by retained customers, it is driven by new users. And so your need is to go out and get new users. So if I just go backwards a little bit, we go back to this process again, people go, okay, I need to get loads and loads of people to my website, and then I retain, if I can convert 10% of those visitors or 1% of those visitors and I retain them, then I'm going to get all these customers. So if I can get 10 times as many people come to my website, I'm going to get 10 times as many customers paying. And there's like a simple logic to that. And so you tend to ignore that middle bit. But the thing is, there's better ways of doing it. So this is wrong, basically. There is logic in having retention. If you can't retain your customers, you don't have a business to build upon. It's table stakes. But there's a better way of going about this and building that explosive growth. And it's this. This is a framework that was created by a guy called Dave McClure, and he called it the R framework. And he wrote a presentation called Startup Metrics for Pirates. And it basically goes like this. It goes acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. If you get a chance and you're working in SaaS or you have an application or something and you want to build a business around it, it's definitely worth checking out. Now, the key to the hockey stick is actually activation. This is the thing that you should put first. If you cannot activate a significant number of your users and make them happy, then you're just squandering money here and you're not doing enough with that. You don't have enough volume to be worried about this retention anyway. You're never going to get the growth on that side. So we focus on activation. What does activation mean? Well, he defined it like this. He said, users enjoy first visit, happy user experience. That's what the activation phase looks like. It's building a great first touch. What typically happens when you have a trial project is a trial phase in your product. So people go to the website, they say, okay, I want to do a trial. They sign up. They log in, they do all the registration forms, they start using it. 50% of users never log in again. 50%, you're losing half those people immediately. And the general reason why is because you've got really poor experience. So the way companies like Slack are able to grow really quickly is they provide a great first touch experience. So the insight that they had was generally this. It goes back to their product and their feature set. So you're thinking about, we talked about earlier that you have to create utility. You have to have a feature set. You have to generate value for your customer. Well, that's one thing. But the insight is this. People think your product is the fire flower, right? The product. Like, hey, we need to focus on the value, the feature set. We need to focus on the look and feel of the product, and that's what we're selling. It's actually wrong. What you're selling is Fire Mario over here. You're selling the awesome Mario who can throw fireballs by simply clicking B or whatever it is. He runs around, he throws fireballs everywhere, and he's great. This is what you're selling. You're not selling this product at all. This product, you think about it like this. This is your customer. This is your product. This customer needs help, and he needs all sorts of different things. He's not going to go and tell his friends, oh, you need to use this, it's brilliant, because he's a customer with a product. He hasn't been transformed yet. Now, this guy over here, this is the guy that in your vision, when you're thinking about your products and your services, you're thinking, if my customer gets this, he's going to be killing it in his business. He's going to be doing really, really well. He's going to be, collaborating seamlessly with his team and all these things. Now, actually creating that person is kind of hard. So think about it like this. Have you ever, who's used Salesforce? Anyone use Salesforce, for example? It's quite a difficult platform to use. It's so complicated now, right? I mean, it's been built over a long period of time, but it's tremendously powerful. But getting to that end result, becoming that master user of Salesforce, is a long process sometimes, and it requires training, and it requires a little bit of pain on the user side to get there. Now, if you can make that really, really easy, then suddenly you have Salesforce master users everywhere, and they're excited, and they want to use it, and they're telling their friends to use it, who then become Salesforce master users as well. And that's what's going to drive your growth. Basically what Slack did, we're going to go back to Slack again, sorry, is that they built a seamless and enjoyable path to mastery, and they added the killer feature set. So everybody focuses on this, not many people focus on this. Slack's killer feature set is simple startup. You can use it in a browser, you can use it in a native app. They have search integration, they can integrate with all your favorite platforms like GitHub and so on. You can create teams, you can create projects, you can create conversations just completely seamlessly. You can bring people into your conversation, and it's just like a very, very easy way. It's not like an amazingly exciting application, but it's just so well designed. And then they added that with a seamless and enjoyable path to getting all of that value out of the app. So people who start using it within minutes, they know how to create a team, they know how to create a project, they know how to invite their friends to it, they know how to search their hard drive or just search for their files that they can drop into the environment. They know how to integrate. It's just seamless, and it's easy, and it takes minutes to get going. And that's what's driven Slack's growth. Now, what it looks like is, again, I'm going to say it's not very exciting, and you can't read this from probably where you are, but it's a simple app. It's a messaging app. That's all it is. And you're looking at the messaging. It says here, this is, I can't read it now, but this is the beginning of, I'm going to read it from my computer. Sorry, I'll come over here and read it from my computer. I can't read it here either, sorry. It's too small. So basically what it says is like, this is the beginning of Slackbot. Slackbot is pretty dumb, but I try to be helpful. It's got this playful tone to it. It's trying to be friendly to you. Down here it says, hi, why don't I ask you a few questions to get going? And it says, what's your name? And you fill in your name, and then that populates all of the back-end data. It hasn't asked you to fill a form in at this point. It's just got you straight in there, and it's created a dialogue with you, and you're actually populating this application as you go along. And it's just seamless. You're having a conversation with Slackbot, who's pretty dumb but quite friendly. You finish this bit, you go on. It says, okay, you can integrate now. You can download an app. You can use this for the browser. You can add teams. It's just this step-by-step process of making everything seamless and getting the user used to using the application. One very, very small thing is that they've actually taught you how to use the app by getting you to fill in your name. So usually, when you think about an application that you've signed up to, they'll have a form where you put your name in. So you have to learn, it's pretty obvious, but you do have to learn how to use that form. And then you go off and you have to learn how to use the application separately. What they've done is they've combined it. They said, we need your name. Let's give me your name by using the essential way of using this application. So you fill it in. Congratulations, you not only put your name in, but you've learned how to use me as well. Great. It's seamless. It's enjoyable. You go to the next bit. Let's integrate. Click this button. By the way, you're not only telling us what you need, you're actually setting it up at the same time. And so what's happened is that basically they have powered their growth by getting people to know how to use the application to a master level within seconds and actually having a good time while they're doing it. It's friendly, it's got really nice colors, and it's got a tone to it. It's kind of happy, it's kind of sarcastic, it downplays itself and so on. And it's just enjoyable. Now, so why is good activation key? So going back to the strategy, so we talked a lot about user experience design, but going back to the strategy, and we want to go to that contributive UX. So there's a number of things that I think of when I think about activation and onboarding, as we might call it. And the first one, if you're in a software as a service business, is that if you have really, really bad onboarding, if you get people into your system and then you have to phone them up and explain how to use something, or send them loads of documentation, or send them to an FAQ and it takes time, you're actually increasing your cost of customer acquisition, which is, we call it the CAC thing. So the cost of acquiring a customer goes really, really high. Now, if you make that seamless so that people go, okay, I want to see this, they're already using the app before they know it, they like it, they sign up, your cost of acquiring a customer is really, really low. What's the practical consequence of that? Well, if you have a fixed budget for acquiring customers and you reduce that cost, you can acquire more customers in any given period of time. The next one, less customer support. If you have a bad onboarding experience, or you have a bad experience altogether, generally you have to employ customer support. And I kind of think of customer support as ketchup when you cook badly and you put ketchup on it to take that bad taste away. And so in a product design industry, customer support is the same kind of thing. You don't design your product as well as it could be, and so you need to prop it up with human assistance. So if you do it well, you don't have to employ those people, you can have less customer support, you can invest that cash that would be going to this overhead, this cost, and you can put it into designing more features, more upgrades, more growth. Last one, if you have a seamless and enjoyable experience to mastery, you're going to have much more advocates for your business. And they're going to go out and they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to insist on internal adoption within their company. This application is great, it really helps my team, you guys should use it too. Simple as that. What happened with Slack? Well, actually, within their first 2 years, they got to $64 million in annual recurring revenue. That means they're getting more than $5 million a month by the end of the second year. I mean, it's crazy. And as I said, you go back to that retention, they have huge retention. It's probably, it's way above 95%. They just, that money is in the bank. It's just coming in every single month. They're not growing their team over that period. They don't have to get more customer support staff as they grow their customer base because they have a seamless experience. That's just turning into a higher and higher margin, net profit margin, which is amazing for the business. It makes them more attractive to investors, and that again fuels their growth. Okay, so I want to wrap up now. I think I might have taken quite a long, sorry, I've taken a very long time. The conclusion here is basically the key to really rapid growth in digital products is understanding your business first. And that actually means understanding what you're selling and what is the key to success. Now, going back to Airbnb, what are you selling? You're not selling cheap rooms, you're selling cheap experiences. What is the key to success? To Slack, it was very, very fast path to mastery, so people would use it quickly. Now, understanding your user, what's holding them back? Well, go back to Airbnb, I don't really like that room, it's a bit grungy, I'm not excited about it, I think I'll go with the hotel. What will delight them? This room looks amazing. Wow, I can feel like I'm an actual resident of San Francisco, for example. Last point is that if you do understand your business model and you do understand your user, it'll start to become more and more obvious how to align those things. Now, all of those strategies, you're probably thinking, that's pretty obvious. Airbnb, let's have good photography, it's quite obvious. Slack, let's make it easy to learn, it's quite obvious. But it's only obvious when you really, really understand your business model and you understand your user. So if you understand those two things very, very well, and then getting that alignment becomes clearer and clearer. And I'm just going to wrap up really quickly here because I'm well over time. And that's it, so thank you very much. Let me think. It's the same principle. As an agency, as a consulting agency, we specialize in digital. We have done physical products as well. You're surrounded by it. If I think about a local company, for example, a local physical company, it might be Lush from Poole, I think it was. Their whole experience was, let's actually get the product out of the packaging and into the store. So when you walked into the store, you had this immediate sort of sensory overload experience. And that was really an understanding of what do we need to do to make the customer come into our store? How do we attract them? How do we bring them in? And how do we make them understand the value of what we're producing here? So I mean, yeah, it applies to anything really. We specialize in digital, but understanding your customer and understanding your business model and aligning the two, it just applies to any business really. It's a series of things. That's a really good question. I'd say for us, it depends on, there's a number of variables. There's not one methodology that we apply. It depends on what the business is, what's known, what isn't known. We tend, in the digital side of things, we do like interviews. We do like observations. We do like looking at the data of how they're actually using things. What it comes down to for us as consultants that have to worry about, we really need to create value for our customers, is how much of our customers' budget do we want to allocate for that and what is the return on that? So we make practical decisions around how we're going to do it. In terms of methodologies, it depends on what we're trying to answer. So in terms of value analysis, for example, I really favor surveys, which comes slightly after, for me, exploratory analysis. So I might go and talk to people. Not a big fan of focus groups, to be honest. I find it's the biggest voice in the room seems to take over a lot. But exploratory analysis, then go into surveys, get some quantitative data. I can start to get a picture of what people actually value. If it comes down to experience, like the actual user research of how people are actually interacting with things, observations are really, really great. And contrary to maybe what's widely believed, I know there's the statistical significance idea of you have to do 30 people. In observations, you tend to plateau at about 9 or 10 users or users of a certain type. And you generally get incremental returns after 5 or 6 users. So you don't have to go that far to get really, really good insights from users, basically. I wouldn't build it in the dark, and I'd get feedback as soon as possible. I have to go back for quite a lot of slides to show you, but in our process, the reason why we structure our process in a certain way is because it's designed to get user feedback to make the maximum impact at the cheapest amount of research. So for example, if I'm at the very, very beginning, if I'm thinking about actually how the user experience is designed, if I have an actual application and I want to change something, that could have enormous cost to it. We might find out that a framework that we've chosen early on does not support that design decision. And then we have to strip out that framework and we have to deal with all the sort of regression effects that go through the entire application and fix all those things. If I had an application that I'd drawn with a big piece of paper and a crayon, just a user interface, and I said, I'm basically thinking this, and I put it in front of people, then to change that takes me seconds, and it takes me the cost of a crayon. So what I'd say is get that feedback as early as possible. Don't build I don't know if I'm answering your question here, but don't build something and then test it. You need to get that input as early as possible. The other thing I could advise you, it's not in your question, but the other thing I can advise you on is you should try to use techniques to get the people that you ask for feedback to put them at ease. Because if they know you or they know that you built the app, they're probably going to give you biased information. They're going to say, oh yeah, it's really good. But if you say, oh, I'm working for a company that's been employed by this company, I didn't do it myself, then they'll tell you the truth. They're more likely to anyway. So. Oh, I see. So for example, if we if we made if we helped with competitor A and then competitor B, okay, well actually it does happen sometimes, and generally what we say is when they're going to come chronologically, right? So they're not going to come exactly the same time, and we usually just disclose. We say, by the way, just so you know, we have worked with this company, and we continue to work with them. And then, you have to be honest about these things. If either one of those companies are unhappy with that, they can move away. But you're bound by professionalism and NDAs and so on that you cannot disclose secrets across. That would damage our reputation and probably end our business if we started doing that. So it's just, you have to be honest about it. You have to show them that we are dealing with your competitor here. You have to highlight potential conflicts of interest, but if both sides are okay with it and they trust that you are going to be professional about it, it's okay, It's not like a mechanical process at all. One of our core practices and one of the principles in our company is that we have built our culture around innovation principles, right? So we've even built our own software as a service application around innovation, which we have our clients actually use when we're doing projects with them, and we tend to do some structured innovation exercises. So, I mean, just because you know that customers value attribute X, it doesn't mean that you know what the final solution is going to look like. But you can start positing ideas towards it, and that's just a hypothesis that you have to test. So what happens is that we tend to use brain swarming techniques through the application. So we have anonymous contributors and so on. And then that way we can build up lots and lots of suggestions, and we can sort of filter them down into the good ones, and then we can apply those as our hypotheses and then test against it, and then we reject the ones that don't work and we extend the ones that have potential. It's the same as any sort of development process. Yeah, I mean, I could stand here and suggest a bunch of techniques, but it really depends on the customer, and you've got to get a feel for how to deal with them, I guess. But I mean, you have to broach that subject. I mean, that's the one thing that you've got to be clear, that if you really think that this is, I'll tell you what, actually, this is the best way to go about it, is to build up evidence. And the way you can do that is by doing simple tests. There's loads of platforms out there on the internet. So for example, we had one customer and we felt that their brand palette, that's like the colors that went into the brand, for example, were really unappealing, but they were so wedded to them because they had them for a really, really long time. And so all we did was we put a quick A/B test up. Not a true A/B test in probably the way you guys understand it, but there are test platforms where you can put two versions of the same thing, and then people can vote on the one that they like. And we typically found that, over 90% preferred the proposed one, and only less than 10% preferred the traditional design. And then you can use that as evidence. If you come across as subjective, I think it's bad, then it's just opinions. But if you say, look, we tested or we interviewed 50 people, and the consensus was this. Now we do these tests on everybody, and we just felt that we had to highlight, that people are perceiving it in this way, and we have some ideas how to go about it, but we want to get your opinion on that, and that allows them to start going, well, actually we have been thinking about that for a while, and then they bring themselves back into the narrative.
Well, let's give Robbie a big round of applause.
Thank you.